yet. Working on it. So Chair, we for the city of Beaverton, Councilor Sansucci is actually going to be sitting in today. Neither the mayor or their alternate are available. So we wanted to extend the offer to at least allow for the city to participate in the conversation, though we won't have a voting member from the city today.
Anyone have concerns with that? Seeing none, bring Mark in.
Great. So Councilor Sansucci, you should be getting a request to promote to a panelist. Feel free to take that. And Mayor Callaway, if you can hear, you should also be getting a promotion request. And Mayor May could be joining.
There's Keith.
Okay. Apologize, we're having some confusion here. Let's see. Bear with me one sec here. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we do have a quorum now. Chair, if you'd like to go ahead and start the meeting.
Thanks, Stephen. Call to order the meeting of the Washington County Coordinating Committee for Monday, July 18th, 2022. We're meeting via Zoom, and there we go. Stephen, you had something you wanted to talk about before we get into visitor comments or intro and roll call?
Yeah, really, it was what I wanted to just mention was that Councilor Sansucci was going to be joining us on behalf of the city of Beaverton today. So we actually covered that. So I think we're actually ready to move on with roll call if you're ready.
Cool. No visitors comments then?
We did not have anyone who signed up today. Is there anyone on the call who would like to raise their hand to provide a comment? I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Me neither. Okay. You want to, other than Councilor Sansucci, I think that's our usual cast that's on here. So do you want to go through roll call, Stephen?
Let's do that if you don't mind. So I'll go again in order of jurisdiction. So for City of Banks, Mayor Jones.
Stephanie Jones, I'm here.
For Beaverton, I believe Councilor Sansucci is on.
Yep. I'm
Thank
here.
you. Appreciate you joining us. For Cornelius, Mayor Delane.
Present.
For Durham, do we have Mr. Mayor Shirato?
I got a text from Gary that he didn't think he was going to be able to make it.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I don't see their alternate on either, so we'll keep an eye out just in case. For Forest Grove, do we have Mayor Truax?
I do
Or
not
Councilor
see him.
Rippey?
Does anybody else?
Not seeing either on the call right now. Okay. For Hillsborough, Mayor Callaway.
Present.
Thank you. For King City, Mayor Fender or Council President Paulson. I don't believe we have either on just yet. Okay. North Plains, Mayor Linehan.
Here.
Thank you. City of Sherwood, Mayor Mays.
He just picked up a phone. No.
See him there. For Tigard, Mayor Snyder.
Here.
Thank you. for Tualatin, Mayor Bubenik.
Here.
Thank you. Wilsonville, do we have Mayor Fitzgerald or Council President Ackerval? I don't believe we do. Okay, we'll keep an eye out for some of these folks and get them promoted as we see any additional members joining. And then let's do our non-voting members. I saw Councilor Rosenthal is with us. We have Matt Freitag from Odot Region 1 with us, and Tara O'Brien from TriMet.
Here, nice to see everyone.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Stephen. Consideration for the minutes from June 13th, 2022. Anyone care to make the motion?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Motion by
Second.
Stephanie Jones, second by Mayor Lenahan. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
And I'm sorry, Chair. I just got a note. I skipped over Commissioner Fye. I apologize.
Oh,
She
I
is
was
actually
wondering, and I was like, did I
Yeah.
miss something? Okay, it wasn't just me. All right.
no,
Thank
it
you.
wasn't just you. Thank you. Yeah, I just skipped right over. So I apologize for that, Commissioner.
It's Monday, Stephen. I was gonna
So
let you have that. for
it's
today, but-
definitely a Monday. Thank you.
That'll be on his review. I understand.
Yep.
Okay, so we had the ayes. Any nays? Any abstentions?
Just me.
Okay, Councilor Sansucci, duly noted. Okay, well, that takes us into our next opportunity, the MSTIP Opportunity Fund request. Have a recommended or proposed action for $239,800 for ODOT for a Safe Routes to School grant. Is there any questions, comments? Chris, did you have some comment on this? Chris, you're muted.
Just that we updated our agenda with this item a day after it was posted when we realized we'd missed it. So if you printed out your agenda the day you got it, you might have missed it. So this is a request, the request it is from Washington County for a Safe Routes to School project to serve multiple schools on Southeast Witch Hazel Road. And so the WCCC TAC voted in support of a recommendation to you for this grant. And so we are seeking the $239,000 for it. And Aaron Wardell is on here and $239,800 if you have any additional questions.
Anyone have questions? Yes, Mayor Jones.
I'm just curious why it's Washington County applying for this and not City of Hillsborough.
Aaron?
Can answer that. It's a road under Washington County jurisdiction, even though it is within the city of Hillsborough.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Asked and answered. Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, anyone care to make the motion?
I move that we approve this.
Motion by Mayor Lenahan. Do I have a second?
Second by Callaway.
Yep. I'm going to give the tie goes to Callaway on this one, Frank. Okay. Any further discussion or question? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Councilor Sansucci? No?
Oh, I think technically I'm not allowed to vote anyway, so maybe I shouldn't abstain either.
Okay. Well, duly noted. All right. So that sounds like it passed just fine, Stephen.
Okay.
Okay. Just hauling along here. Regional Toll Advisory Committee and Toll Program Update. So purpose, appoint a Washington County Coordinating Committee representative and alternate to the Regional Toll Advisory Committee and get some overview on the toll reports, policies, and availability for comment. Basically, I did receive an invitation from Brendan Finn at Odot, Office of Urban Mobility, to appoint a representative from Washington County Coordinating Committee to serve in the cities of Washington County slot for the new regional. Oh, so many pages here. Committee will meet monthly, and it will consider accountability, expediting the regional mobility pricing project, diversion impacts and mitigation, transit and multimodal needs, and consideration between the I-205 toll project and regional mobility program. This committee is recommended by Jpeg and the Metro Council to be established in the last, if you folks remember when we did the RTP amendment process for the I-205. It's one of several committees that have been organized to talk about Oregon toll programs. I'll open for nominations for a primary and an alternate. And ODOT would like to start meeting in August. Mayor Schneider.
I'd like to nominate Mayor Bubenek. I don't think there's Washington County city that's less impacted than Tualatin. I think they're most impacted, to be honest, and would think that that would make the most sense.
Further discussion? Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Mayor Callaway. Okay. Any further discussion? Frank, I think when you and I chatted about this, you'd be willing for this opportunity.
Oh, yes, big time. So be also involved on the Clackamas County side also.
Wow, a glutton for punishment.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Yeah, ayes, any
No.
nays?
If we need an alternate, I suggest Keith, because he's on the phone. Or Counselor said Susie, because he sees a light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, I had ayes, I didn't hear any nays. I didn't hear any other, sounds like Frank, congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, and casting Mayor Callaway's dispersions aside for Keith's attention to our meeting, do open up discussion for alternates.
I would also, if Keith's not willing to do it, nominate Mayor Snyder, since I-5 is also borders Tigard, and eventually it will impact Tigard. I realize that Mayor Snyder is only going to be with us to the end of the year, but I would assume he could attend the meetings in the meantime, and then we can reevaluate in January.
Or even proactively, maybe in December.
Yeah.
I second that nomination.
Okay, a motion by Mayor Bubenek, second by Mayor Callaway. Any further discussion on Mayor Snyder as the alternate until the end of the year? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we don't get a vote from Keith, but it passed by everybody else, so it's good. Okay, so we move through the primary and the alternates. Chris, you wanted to give us some overview on some of the stuff that's going on? I mean, it's been like a freight train of information going around.
Yeah. I'm just going to give you a short update about the various, help keep you straight, just like I've had to work on keeping this all straight. We included several things in your packet that are floating around right now. One of them is the Oregon Highway Plan Amendment Goal 6. It sounds very exciting, but it is actually. It's the amendment to the Oregon Highway Plan to amend their toll policy. That amendment is scheduled for a public comment period on Wednesday of this week, with written comments due August 1st, and then action will be by the OTC or later in September or later this year. And then, so that is getting some discussion. And in addition, there is Metro has just released their congestion pricing policy. And that we did not get in your packet. I think we got a link to the TPAC agenda, but that came out later. And so Teresa, could you hold off on this PowerPoint for a second? Yeah, thanks. She's ready to keep us moving. So that it is now available. TPAC saw it on Wednesday. That was after your packet had gone out. And that is going to be the focus of your discussion at your special workshop next Monday on the 25th. And then again, the subject of your the Jpeg Metro Council workshop on July 28th. So we're not planning to spend time on it now, but the purpose of this is just to help you keep all these various documents straight. There are two other documents floating around that you may have heard about. One of them is the low income toll report that is coming out has come out from Odot as well. And that proposes some sort of exemptions for low income for both the 200% of the federal poverty line, as well as exemptions for family of four for those at the 40% of the poverty line. For a family of four, that means about $111,000 with some exemptions for tolls. And this is something I just want to point out that I believe it's in this group, although they're all meetings are starting to blend together, where the concern about the working poor and how it's not just those that are on the federal poverty line, but others that really need their car to get to work. So that report is out and it will be considered later this year in September. The fourth document that we did include was the equity recommendations from the ODOT's Equity Mobility Advisory Committee, EMAC. These recommendations were presented last Thursday to the Oregon Transportation Commission. It was kind of a love fest. There was many appreciation, much thanks. And these, we included these just because they are really the foundation that both Metro is turning to and ODOT is turning to guide to how equity is considered in the pricing programs. So the purpose of this now is to just let you know what's out there to help you keep these various documents straight. And then to let you know, we will be sending you another packet with these documents, particularly including the Metro congestion pricing one for your workshop next week. I think it is helpful to provide the context to see what ODOT's policies are. It helps give a different perspective on the Metro's policies. So I think it is helpful, as well as that foundational element from the Equity Committee. So this is just, we put this item in here just to help you get grounded on what's going on right now and get prepared for what's coming next week. And I do have, if you have questions, I know that Garrett Pryor is in the attendees list. And so you have a question and you want to hear from an expert on this, he is here. And I know Councilor Rosenthal, representing Metro, may also have anything to say. I know you've been working on the pricing policies as well. So that was the purpose of just giving you a quick briefing about what's floating around out there right now and when it'll come back to you.
That was pretty widespread and concise. Thanks, Chris. Anyone have any specific questions, comments, things to bring to the forefront here? Yeah, Mayor Callaway.
Thank you, Mayor. So Chris, thank you for this information. I talked to Della Moser this last week, I think it was, and one of the things that I expressed to her is that as we consider the low income, support, that, if we can, I suggested we have like a transponder, so that as people are going through, it just automatically detects, but it's not done with license plates or anything else. And that way, in the same way with handicap placards, if I'm taking, an elderly person or just, somebody that has a handicap placard, that goes with the person, not with the car. And so that way, if somebody is, if one of the people that would qualify for, kind of the toll relief is using somebody else's car or they're being driven by somebody else, that benefit would go with that person as opposed to just be assigned to a car. And and then, you know, I get concerned sometime where, you know, if there's a small bump in somebody's income, that can put them just over the threshold. And, you know, and saw that as a principle when there would be a, you know, family in Section 8 housing and they'd get a little bump and all of a sudden it would have a, you know, really domino effect on benefits. And so I want to make sure that we're sensitive to that as well, so that it's not just such a black and white thing that a few extra dollars, you know, in a paycheck per week triggers, and you end up losing money in the process because now you've lost, you know, benefits and access. So those are a couple of thoughts that I shared that I just wanted to make sure you were aware of. So thank you.
Right. Well, that's very interesting. And if you would like to have more, we could bring Garrett in, because there's quite a bit of discussion about this being sort of a self-certified, so that there wouldn't be anybody watching your week-to-week paycheck. But it'd be more like randomized testing. And I would turn to our Odot folks for more information about that if you'd like to hear more.
Well, you know, that if it pleases the rest, but I just want to make sure that the burden is not on the individual, in terms of, you know, bureaucracy and paperwork and that sort of thing. Because, you know, our working poor, one of the resources that is most scarce to them is also time. And so to ask them to invest more of their own time when it's such a scarce commodity, you know, I think, again, makes it more burdensome than it should be or needs to be.
Right, right. No burden, not burdensome.
Anyone else?
Councilor Rosenthal raised his hand.
Yep, I see that. Yes.
I just a comment to remember, you know, there's going to take a lot of discussion before this all works out. There's a lot of elements here. Keep in mind that there's going to be tolling pricing to pay for construction, which is bond retirement. There's going to be tolling for equity, which is what we're talking about right now. There's also going to be congestion pricing to discourage people from traveling during peak periods of the day. And then, of course, we have, and we probably will continue to have, tolling based upon the vehicle size, number of axles and so forth, which we've done for years. So this is going to be, it's going to be interesting. I will not claim to be an expert exactly how it's going to roll out at this point. So just to remind people that there's a lot of moving parts.
Thank you. I had some folks exercise me on this a little bit, and I didn't feel I could answer the question, so I was going to flop it out here for the group. Is the and Steve hit on a little bit. It's the millions of dollars we're going to build in infrastructure, right? We're talking about a transponder system where you drive in, you drive out, it auto tracks you, but that doesn't cover everything. Then you also have to still have somebody, I'm assuming either we're going to have toll booths or we're going to have somebody watching license plates for those that are travelers that are coming through that don't have responders. So now you're growing an entire new org in Odot of people, and those aren't inexpensive. So we'll just throw a few $1 million in there, and it starts to be like, well, why aren't, and then we're trying to take an equity lens on this and look at folks that can't really afford this kind of additional taxing. And people start, basically the question is, why aren't we doing something on the income tax structure? We already have an income tax system. It's very efficient. It's very effective. It already accounts for differences in income value, and, you know, wouldn't take additional millions of staffing, retirement, infrastructure, transponders, everything like that. So I just, it does beg a question that it just makes everything much more complicated. And we already have a state system of record, and we already went, all the representatives ran around the state and got support for these projects on 205 and I-5 because they are of statewide significance. So had to just kind of throw that out there. So.
Yeah.
Other questions, comments? It doesn't hurt my feelings for us to get a little bit ahead on our agenda, because I'm sure we'll eat it up somewhere else. Mayor Fitzgerald, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry, it took me a little while to get out of another meeting to be here, but I wanted to also add to that. Something was already mentioned about people who are a little bit above that poverty line, which there's a big band of people, or even a little ways above it, and are going to be paying full charge for that toll. And how does that affect them? Then I get the question from people kind of regardless of their income. This comes up a lot. Low income and probably all incomes. If somebody is living near to where the tolling starts and they have to access that toll entry system 3, 4, or more times a day for their job or their family and their essential services, that person is going to feel unfairly burdened by those multiple tolls. And I just wonder, what, and I did ask this question at a recent meeting. They were said, well, that person could be classified or whatever is the word, in a category of being burdened by that location of where they live. That means they have to go in and out of the toll system. So when will we be able to have a kind of a document or something that informs people how that will work? And once you start giving those kinds of discounts, or however those people might be compensated for having to pay a lot more for tolls because of where they live than others, how does that eat into the whole cost of it? And I just wonder how, that's the kind of question I'm getting from people, and I don't know how to answer it. Thank you.
Staff, Chris, do you have any?
I don't have an answer. And I was just going to suggest that if we'd like to hear more, we could promote Garrett to answer that question. There is a toll rate setting process that has not yet started. And there is this low income toll report. So if you'd like to hear more now, I think we could ask him to answer that question. There he is.
Great. Garrett, are you, maybe you're off my screen on my second or third.
Howdy. Yeah, I'm here. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, Mayor Fitzgerald. The low income toll report. So that's really, we're trying to address income impacts. But what I heard from you was maybe more like geography impacts and how that's going to be considered. And I would say that's going to be one area that could show up is in this Oregon Highway Plan toll amendment. So at a policy level, I'll just say just a quick on that though, we did receive a bit of pushback from our equity committee not to call out specific geographies because those geographies and the populations can change over time. And then also, you have kind of few other states, the toll program in Southeastern Virginia, they have a geography based but it's very much tied to like a historically Black community and neighborhood that lives in that area. We're more going to see kind of the geographic input and what's happening on specific streets where it's getting benefited or burdened by tolls through the toll projects, like Chris was saying. So through the NEPA analysis and then the toll rate setting process that occurs after that, that's where you'll see like specific commitments to either improvements on local streets or roads that Odot would bring with the project, or if there's some type of carve out or special thing made in the toll rate setting itself. So I'd follow the projects, and as those continue along, that's where those questions will continue to be kind of asked and considered and looped in.
And to jump in here, Garrett, I think more about this would be, I would liken Mayor Fitzgerald, please clarify if I'm wrong, more like, hey, if I paid the toll, if we're going to go through this, we're going to put all this technology in place, why wouldn't you say, well, I paid the toll today, it's not the transponder is not going to charge me again until the day turns over or something, right? So if people have to enter and exit, so we put this right in the base foundation, so we know folks.
Something like that is what people are asking, and I think it could create a lot of opposition to tolls if we don't, unless we have a way to answer them like that, because it's just the most common thing that I hear. And of course, it's also not, there are so many different layers of concern about having to pay that toll several times a day and how that's going to affect different income levels.
Sure. I would say then that's a good comment to provide now for the low income toll report. And what I'd probably be, if I were you, like a maximum daily toll, someplace to do that. And so I would, if I were you all, that's a comment I would provide now during this low income toll report work.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor Schneider?
Well, Jeff, I'll emphasize it, but you just made my suggested, I mean, I know we're not supposed to be problem solving, but it sounds like Garrett thinks this would be helpful. That was literally going to be my proposal to solve Mayor Fitzgerald's concern, is just a single max, either a one charge per day, or if it's a, 1.5 charge, whatever. There's some sort of maximum that one can be assessed that's probably close to the normal 1-day charge.
Well, and I think that falls into the rulemaking, right? Whoever's putting the rules together, I mean, if they can figure out how, if you ride the bus enough times, you just basically paid for your monthly charge, and then the rest of the month you ride without any additional charge, I'm sure the guy that developed that software can figure out how to do it for the tolling also, right? And I think that's just getting this input ahead of time, that we think, a one and done's enough in a day, or two's a maximum. We got to get something in there. It's kind of like I see it as like the 400%, right? I'm glad to see that we're having more discussion around that level of working poor. So we're not talking about just a poverty exemption, but the people that are just making it through, right? And that if you're just over $100,000 a year for your family, that's just enough to kind of make it through in this city without being in every other system there is, like food stamps and all the other stuff. So I'm glad we're doing that stuff. So Mayor Callaway.
Thank you. And I think, Tara with TriMet can confirm, but they also have like a monthly, monthly pass. And so after, so many rides, basically the rest of them are free. So, whether it's, kind of a weekly or daily cap, on the toll cost, we've already seen successfully that it can be done kind of on a monthly basis. And I think that's accurate, correct? Okay.
Yes, and we coordinated with Odot in developing the low income toll report to ensure that there was some, we are using some of the same criteria in the for their low income toll discount program and for our low income fare program, which is a monthly pass program.
Any other comments or questions? We're right on schedule to go to our next topic.
Well, I would just say that I think you're going to have a lively discussion next Monday. And it's these topics stray between what Metro is proposing and the congestion pricing policy for the RTP, what ODOT's toll policy pricing is, and some of it then bleeds over into the low income toll report, and the rulemaking toll rate setting committee hasn't even started yet. So Garrett helps me keep these things straight. So does Tara and all our other partners, because there is just a lot going on. So we'll put all these in your packet. I think it's good to have reference to see what the others are. I think it helps provide the context. And we will also have the benefit of hearing some of the testimony on the 20th on the ODOT Oregon Highway Plan amendment.
Well, Chris, you got an A+ on your tolling report card for the recap. You're doing excellent work.
Yeah, I would say add to that we need a Venn diagram or something of where all these different inputs and who we have to talk to. Because I mean, it's Commissioner Bai. We need to talk to Garrett and Steve for stuff going to Jpeg. We have to get Garrett Pryor updated if we're going stuff to ODOT. So I think we almost need that kind of scorecard kind of direction, Venn diagram that shows us all the inputs to make sure we are helping attach to all the people that are going to be influencing this information. Mayor Callaway?
One other thing, because this is statewide, tolling policy. And so, one of the things as we think about all the coastal bridges over on Highway 101, that are going to need replacement, this also then becomes kind of the model, for how tolls might be used to help fund the replacement of those coastal bridges as well.
Remember, that was Steve Calloway at the City of Hillsborough, if you want to send comments on that.
Yeah, he was tolling on all the bridges.
Well, I think we all see the ink on the wall that there'll be a big, at some point, it's not just 205 or I-5, that there'll be some kind of ring around Portland at least. And then it's a question of where does it go from there, right? So I'm going to say it one more time because I just love saying it. Tolling is heroin for Odot. Once they get a bite of it, they're never going to be able to let go. So there, I've said it. Let's take that fine comment. Let's take us over to RFAA and Trail Bond project ranking. Let's see what we got here. So we're going to view the Washington County TAC recommendation for the RFAA and Trail Bond projects. Chris, and I don't know, is Diana will be on? Be you, Chris? Okay. Mestro asked us to rank the 9 projects, right, from Washington County for the RFAA trails and funds, and recommend support. And there's several ways we can go about this, right? We can go all of them. We can cut the 6 or 7 different ways of recommendation. I think me discussing it more won't help. Chris, why don't you take us away?
Okay, thank you. So yes, that's a good introduction. I'm going to start, then I'm going to turn it to Diami Valentine, who has been more engaged in the actual scoring of the projects and can explain that better, I think. So yes, so today is the day for you to rank or submit your comments to Metro. They asked for them by July 22nd, so they can begin to share them at future JPAC meetings. So next slide. So yes, you've got it. Remember that this is unlike past times where we just had the regional flexible fund allocations. This time, Metro has allocated 20 million of their trails bond funds to be going through the same process. And so that several of the projects that were submitted are eligible either for trails or RFFA funds. And I think an important thing to note is that JPAC only has authority over making a recommendation on the regional flexible fund allocations. So the projects that land in the trails bond funding category are subject to approval by the Metro Council. And I know Metro staff are working really hard to kind of align the timing so that if there is, if a project is eligible for both, then it goes to trails, there's some sense that Metro Council would actually approve that. So it's just a little bit more complicated, but the good news is there was extra funding that was put into this process. So next, that made sense. So Metro's evaluations considered a technical analysis of how the projects met equity, safety, climate, and congestion relief. They did a risk assessment to help understand which projects were either likely to sail through or get snagged, and sort of be aware starting about what the risk is. There was a 30-day public comment period where comments were all solicited on all the projects. And then Metro has additional objectives that are in their guidance for this process. One is to fund projects from throughout the region, but they will not sort of approve any direct sub-allocation or formula. And the other one is to support both project development and construction projects. That was in some of their overall RFFA guidelines. That's just background. So the next slide, please. So I'm going to turn this over to Diami, who is going to walk through the scoring for the 9 projects that came from Washington County. And in your packet, there are 1-pagers for each of these and the actual score sheets that describe more how each of these projects ranked on each of these. And what we have here is a summary for those. And maybe I should take this time right now to make a little bit of an apology. We used to be able to put this all in one packet, so it was easy for you to download and look at. It turns out our website the space available in each of those little links in the website doesn't keep up with how big the packets become. So that's why you'll see on the website that these are all spaced out in so many different ways now, and I apologize for that. And we're trying to figure out how to make that more organized. So Dion, I'm going to turn to you to explain the scoring.
Sure, thanks, Chris. So we pulled this summary table together for the purpose of illustrating, hopefully more clearly, the projects that Washington County and cities and partners submitted. This is the technical evaluation scores for the project development projects that were submitted, which was the majority of projects out of Washington County. And some of them submitted for both the RFFA and the trails funding, so where they're indicated in accordingly here. And the scoring is reflects the technical evaluation. Above average is in relation to all of the projects submitted region-wide. So Allen Boulevard, the project submitted by Beaverton, scored third best in the RFFA technical evaluation. Hillsborough's Crescent Trail overcrossing at Brookwood scored better, best in safety, and did slightly better in the trails funding criteria. Forest Grove submitted the Emerald Necklace Trail Master Plan and scored best in safety, climate, and equity, and also did better in the trails criteria. King City submitted segment 1 of the West Side Trail, only for the trails funding, scored better in that specific criteria. Tigard's Fano Creek Trail was 4th best overall and scored best in safety, climate, and congestion relief and equity. And they just submitted for the RFFA funding. Tigard also submitted for the Tigard Lake Oswego Regional Trail Gap Alignment Study. And that one scored well in both funding programs, best in the trails, and scored best in safety and congestion relief in the RFFA funds and climate and trails criteria for the trails funding. And then THPRD's West Side Trail pedestrian bridge overcrossing of US 26 was the second best rated project in the trails funding program and scored best in equity in the trails criteria. And then we have one more similar kind of summary table on the next page, if you would, for the construction only funding opportunity. So City of Cornelius, Forest Grove, Hillsborough, and Washington County submitted Council Creek Regional Trail enhancement, street enhancement crossing, and that one scored well under both and scored best in the trails rating. And then THPRD's West Side, or sorry, Beaverton Creek Trail submitted for the RFFA funding and was 3rd best overall and scored best in equity, safety, and congestion relief. And so that was all in your packet. Hopefully I had a chance to review that. This Metro then went through the process of preparing a couple scenarios for JPAC and Metro Council consideration. And I believe those have been shared. We got a preview of it last week. Some staff did. And they developed a couple options. One, just looking at kind of the overall technical outcome approach, which is similar to kind of what we illustrated there. And obviously trying to make all the funding programs whole and have some capacity there. And this, based on that technical analysis, this scenario would fund all of the projects submitted by Washington County and the partners, except for the Fano Creek and the Allen Boulevard projects. They also put together
back up.
Sorry, if you can go back real quick. They also prepared a scenario that just looked at kind of an emphasis on construction projects region-wide. And this one actually, because the majority of the projects that were submitted out of Washington County were for project development, this actually funds the least number of projects out of the different scenarios that they developed. Conversely, the project development emphasis, that actually funds all of the projects that were submitted out of Washington County in that scenario. And then they also put together, I think based on what they heard from Jpeg to Metro Council in emphasizing safety and equity outcomes as part of this round, and that this scenario would fund all projects except for the Allen Boulevard proposal. So I think that goes on to, Chris can help
Yeah, I
facilitate
think,
the discussion from
I
this
think
point.
on the next one, I can share what the TAC did. And I just wanted to reiterate that the last slide you saw that Diami shared, we just learned about last Wednesday. We had a Thursday, a special 2-hour meeting to go over for Metro shared their results. And I think you're going to see that at JPAC on Thursday and have an opportunity to review that as well. So when the WCC TAC met over a week ago. So we did not have the benefit of that latest Metro evaluation. So the TAC commented and really thought that the WCCC should recommend all 9 projects for funding. They did not provide a ranking. They felt all were good projects that should be funded. They did have a conversation about emphasizing the benefit, importance of actually delivering construction projects that can leverage past investments and build out the trail network. 8 of the 9 projects submitted were building out Washington County's trail network. And we all know how popular trails are. The other one is the Allen Boulevard Complete Street project, which really complements the trail network. So that was one discussion. The other one was discussing about both the benefits of creating a pipeline projects for future funding. We have new funding opportunities and you can't go after those till you've done some work to be able to estimate your costs and be ready to go. So these, for example, we have project development funds for the Brookwood Overcrossing, Fountain Creek Trail on the West Side Trail Bridge project. And then we had some more initial sort of lower cost planning projects for King City's West Side Trail segment, the Emerald Necklace in Forest Grove, and the Tiger Like Us We Go trail alignment study. And then we also have one from Beaverton on the Allen Boulevard Complete Street Planning and Project Development. So that was part of the tax recommendations, is to provide you with comments about why all of the projects should be funded. And then I think there are a couple of other comments that the TAC on the next slide, Teresa. Other comments was on the Metro scoring. In the past, there's been quite a bit of discussion about how well did the technical evaluation capture the elements of the project. And the TAC commented that there's one project, the Brookwood Overcrossing came up. It's in an industrial employment area. That jobs in that area, are important for low-income jobs, but it didn't score well in the equity criteria. So here's an example where a broader interpretation of what's valuable for equity could have raised that score a little bit more. And another one that affected several projects is there was a criteria, I think it was in the safety, about whether the project supported access to transit. Is that right? And then because, as you've talked about before in this group, Washington County doesn't have a lot of transit routes, and without a lot of transit routes, it's hard to score well in that criteria. And yet the projects provide really important multimodal benefits. In this case, a lot of the trails, and they provide access. I think the West Side Overcrossing is a good example. We don't have transit there, but the trail connects so that people can get, on a trail network for transit. So these are some of the peculiarities in the scoring. The TAC didn't go so far as to say, well, this has scored higher, where the project have moved up more. We didn't go that far, but it's just an observation. And then next, I think as we really are ready for discussion. So you could take the WCC recommendations, say they're all good. You could prioritize as one of the areas that Diami identified on either the outcomes emphasis, the project development, or construction, and explain why that's so important. Or you could look at other considerations and consider rankings, such as how did the investments, is there the TAC talked about this, and the TPAC did too last Thursday, about trying to sort of move help multiple jurisdictions and agencies, and considering what if something didn't get funded, how might it get funded, and the timeliness. Why now? Is this really a ripe opportunity to move forward projects? So there you could consider other options. I know that Metro has asked for your opportunity for you to prioritize, and as I remember, I think you did it once you prioritized or moved up a project. It's been varied over the years on this last 3 or 4 cycles, two or three cycles. So I'm going to open it up. It's a lot of information. And it's a very thorough evaluation process Metro used. It's a little bit more complicated, but it does provide opportunities to come at the ranking from different perspectives. And I think that's the last slide.
Okay, questions, comments, feedback? Mayor Schneider?
Well, it seems to me, and this is not to say that nobody else's comment matters. That's not what I'm going to get at, but it seems to me that the staff work has been very robust, makes sense to me, and I would personally suggest we move forward with the tax recommendation.
Thanks, Jason. Councillor Sansucci?
Yeah, I'll add to that. Thank you, Mayor Schneider, for that, because we definitely agree that the staff recommendation here for supporting all these projects is really the right direction to take. But I think it's probably worth adding more to it, since Metro has asked the coordinating committees to chime in. I think it's probably fair to also chime in on the ranking scenarios that are highlighted in there. I have to say that it's just a little bit baffling that in the ranking, one of the ranking scenarios found that the Allen Boulevard project scored low on safety and equity, when Allen Boulevard is one of our highest crash corridors, and it's also a prime equity focus area for the city of Beaverton. It probably has the greatest concentration of residents and businesses that serve populations of low income and immigrant and non-white communities. So it's a little bit strange. I'm sure our staff will be checking in on the ranking process, but I think it would probably be beneficial to all of the project submitters here in Washington County to encourage Metro to adopt, if they're not willing to change their ranking criteria, to at least adopt the project development focus scenario, which is the one under which all of these proposed projects would be considered for funding. I could go on at length if necessary about the merits of the Allen Boulevard project. I'll just say 2 things really quickly. First, it's not very expensive because it's the planning phase of the project. It's where we go back out to the community after we did a substantial land use study of the Allen Boulevard corridor, and then revisit many of the same people and organizations that, that we visited before, but asking very specific and pointed questions about transportation needs. That's what this would fund. We have, as some of you may recall, also submitted for the next round of the Mstip funding. That would be for project design based on the outcomes that we learn about in this planning project. So we see this as a multi-million-dollar project. It's going to take a long time and a lot of money from a lot of different sources. But the very first and crucial piece of this would be the $700 and some odd thousand we're asking Metro to put into it. So happy to see that project and the THPRD projects included in this list. And I would encourage WCCC to encourage Metro to lean on a project development focus in their scenario rankings.
Thanks, Councillor Sansucci. Mayor Jones?
I was gonna ask that we go back to that slide that Diami had, that had those different ways, because it does seem like we want to turn in some kind of a rankings that will help out all of our Washington County projects. And so if we do, and Councilor Sansucci had the actual name of the plan that puts all of our Washington County projects in that upper part that would get funding. But it just gives us more leverage to say, we're looking at it based on this, not we're just looking at it based on, we want to make sure all our projects get done. And I think it was actually 2 slides after this one. Slide 6.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
This one, yeah. So the project development emphasis.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the reason the project development one works is because the 2 construction projects that are submitted score high enough that they still are included with the funding that's left over after funding the projects that are asking for planning and project development. So that option does both. It moves the projects forward to get in the queue for more funding. And because the 2 construction projects were ranked well, they stay on the list.
Okay. Mayor Callaway.
Thank you. And I'll make this, I'll preface my statement with, the acknowledgement that we can't sub-regionalize, the funding allocation. But having said that, where Washington County, provides, we have 36% of the population, and only 23% of the full allocation monetarily is represented by our requests. So I feel like if we prioritize things, then as it is, we're already, well below, maybe an equitable funding amount. So I just really think we just push them all forward. And I agree with Councilor Sansucci, with the project development. And, I think that every single one of these is justifiable and fundable. And I just think we should go forward, just with that block.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Yes, Mayor Mays.
So
Mayor Callaway's talking, but he's muted. I'm going to let Mayor Mays have the floor, and then I'll swing back around to you, Steve.
just for each city that submitted something that might not have scored super high, am I correct that you have an idea of an alternative funding source than a Metroflex funds allocation at the next round or round after that? There's other paths to success that you have. Most of us have multiple ideas for any given project for funding, but I just hope that's the case, because certainly not everybody on the development list will get funded by Metroflex funds in the future. It just isn't possible, in my opinion.
Thanks, Keith. Steve?
Good, thanks.
Okay. I think those are all good points. Commissioner Rosenthal?
Yeah, I just have a question slightly a little bit off the subject here. I've heard in some cases that some people have felt that their staffs were, shall we say, they had too many options and not enough time to prepare adequately on, to prepare the documentation for options and grant proposals. And I'm just wondering if that's something that is felt generally. I mean, there was a tendency to make everything happen this spring, and there was a little bit of overlap. And I'm just wondering if that's a problem that Metro needs to deal with.
Questions, comments, folks? Sounds like that one's gonna lay low.
We could ask the staff if that was the case, if that would be helpful when we meet again.
Take it to the TAC.
To the TAC, if we could ask the staff if that's an issue.
And I would hazard to not speak for everyone, but I know for our staff, we've been putting a lot of energy into the CFAC, the Climate Friendly Equitable Communities, responding to that. That's sucked a lot of oxygen out of the room because there's been a lot of concerns and time spent on that. So I don't know about the other staffs, but I know ours has spent a fair amount of time engaging on that process and trying to turn the boat on that. So
And I think you're not the only city that has been doing that to some extent. So-
yeah, there was a pretty substantial meeting of cities the other day just about that. Okay, well, lack of a direction, I kind of heard everybody move forward with if we've got to rank them, use the planning first model. Do we need a full motion on this, Chris, Stephen, or what
Yeah.
do we need?
Yeah, and then we'll probably want to submit something from you to send in to Metro to capture this. Yeah.
Okay.
And Chair, the project development emphasis was the terminology.
Okay.
And Teresa, maybe you could go back to that slide. I think it was slide 6. That way we'll have the words up. And I would just say to the question back to staff about needing more time, I think we're all feeling quite pressed right now for time. And so I think if it was on offer, certainly everybody would say yes, absolutely. But yeah, we'll follow back up with staff and try to confirm if specifically for this, if more time would have been helpful. It's a great question and we appreciate you asking.
So I think what we're talking about is a motion to move forward with a recommendation to use the project development emphasis. We feel it will fund all of ours, but it also build the pipeline for the future.
Should we also make the point that Mayor Callaway made about the money and the amount of our requests and the overall sort of scheme, basically the extra little punch in the ribs about funding everything we submitted in Washington County?
And I think there's a nice way to do that. And I think Mayor Callaway was hinting to some of that, right? That, we're not asking for a sub-regional allocation, but based on just doing the math, right? That our projects don't even fully hit a sub-regional allocation. So we would expect to be handled in such a manner.
We're making very reasonable and responsible requests.
I think Mayor Snyder, I think that is true. I think staff were very conscientious at putting the strongest projects forward, which is why they all scored relatively well. Diami, can you add to that?
Yeah, I was just gonna offer that I think under the safety and equity scenario, there's a real argument there to Councilor Sansucci's point that Allen Boulevard would be a good project funded under that scenario as well. So I think, from a optics standpoint, I think that's a good scenario here as well. Their notes in their evaluation, I think, have been updated to reflect that that the Allen Boulevard project is for safety improvements on a high volume street in an equity focused area. So I think both cases can be made, or you may want to touch on both points.
Right. That's a good point.
And I think that's where we can, the vernacular that fills out the paragraph beyond project development of an emphasis, talk about the hey, we made a reasonable and concerted effort to only bring forth the highest level projects so that they scored well, and we know we didn't just throw things at the wall, for a better way to put the spaghetti statement, right? Okay. Do I have a motion to support moving forward the project development emphasis?
And
yes, so moved.
Motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Sounds like I got a second. I think that was Mayor Jones and Mayor Schneider. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Sounds pretty unanimous. Thank you. We're only 5 minutes behind schedule. Okay, that takes us to Interstate Bridge Replacement Project. Flip page. Take action on letter of support. Okay, so this is one where we've gotten, our legislative bodies have reached out to us and said, hey, this is a major investment. It is of importance in our region. The legislative committee would be considering recommendations on the modified locally preferred alternative later this week. We heard a presentation on this last month. It's been included in your your packet with a draft letter for consideration. At our last meeting, we talked about the importance of designating or designing to meet the long-term capacity needs, and the letter folds that in. Chris heard back from many of you after sending out the draft that you were fine and supported it. Are there any other comments or edits that are recommended before we go send on this? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to accept the letter and move it forward.
Motion to
moved.
accept the letter.
I'm going to give the motion to Mayor Jones, and I think the second was by Mayor Lenahan.
True.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Beat the 5-minute clock on that. We're almost back on time. Okay, that takes us into item 8, ODOT construction update. Provide an update on ODOT summer construction opportunities. Matt, I think you got a PowerPoint for us. And hopefully in this, I didn't get a chance to read through some of this. Are you going to touch on Highway 47?
Informally, yes. I've got a couple updates from my counterpart in Astoria that is responsible for Western Washington County. So a couple updates on that.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. You've got the floor.
Actually, this is a different presentation, though. I'm going to need the.
Yeah. Are we out of order? No. Yeah, it's the ODOT one. Unless you want to talk about the statewide transportation improvement fund, Matt.
I would be happy to, but
Yeah.
you wouldn't get much out of it, and it wouldn't be very correct.
Get the next one queued up.
And maybe while we're getting that pulled up, I will talk about the work that's being done on 47. That is the Creek project, I believe. Sorry, I had it away from me. Dairy Creek replacement project. So that one is underway. I just talked to the construction project manager this morning. They're making good progress, but he expressed concerns that we have identified a detour route that uses Oregon 6 to US 26 to get around there. And everything's signed for that. Certainly it's able to accommodate the volumes of vehicles that are using that. Some of the local Sellers Road to access 26 and making that left turn from northbound Sellers to westbound 26 is a challenge. And while I don't want to imply that it's not a legal route and there are public streets that can be used, but drivers are making some poor choices on finding gaps, and so there has been an uptick in crashes. So I'm encouraging people to use the detour routes that are much better able to accommodate the traffic volumes while this project is under construction, that we hope to have done at the end of the year this year. So in Western Washington County, the paving project that was on 26. They just finished up a couple weeks ago, so they'll be doing a little bit of touch up on some, but for the most part, that work is done. Road to Mountaindale.
So Matt, you're breaking up quite a bit. We're hearing about half of what you're saying, I think, maybe a little more.
Is that a little bit better?
So far, yeah. And I've got your presentation up here too.
So yeah, Western Washington County. And then within Region 1, here's the updates for what we shared with the ACT last month. And then here, yeah. So here's all the projects in Northwest Oregon. We got a lot of them. I'm not going to cover all those today. Actually, let's jump through a few slides here. So next slide, please. One more to get to the projects. There we go. Oh, wait, one more. A lot of intro stuff here. There we go. All right, Yeon, we're paving from St. John's Bridge to Kittredge. So that's making good progress on that. I think half the paving's done. Now they're getting started on the ADA ramps. Once the ADA ramps are done, then they'll be able to pave the B lane in each direction. There will be some signal work happening early next year. Although I guess they're going to get the signal work in later this year, so it'll be wrapped up before the end of 22. Definitely nighttime lane closures to get most of that work done. Next slide, please. TV highway. So we have several projects putting in RFVs and signal upgrades, some backer plates, some targeted safety improvements at each intersection, along with some signing and striping as well. The impacts are going to be pretty limited during construction, so nighttime lane closures, but mostly it'll be done during the day without impacting traffic too much there. That's going to be going through next year. Next slide, please. River Road, this project actually, I believe, is pretty much wrapped up. So we had a 16-day closure of River Road and replaced 2 signal poles that were listing, and then we're just doing some minor touch-ups there. Next slide. Our ADA ramp projects on Hall Boulevard. We are just getting started on that, so that will be replacing. We got 65 ramps that are not ADA compliant right now, so that work will be shoulder closures, a couple nighttime lane closures, but pretty minimal impacts there. On all of our ADA projects, we have 24/7 temporary pedestrian routes, so that people need to get through there walking or biking, that there will be a route provided that will be ADA compliant at all times. Next slide, please. So big project 217. So we're on year 1 of making improvements with southbound and northbound aux lanes, and with targeted improvements to the bike ped network, noise walls, and a whole lot of other things. I encourage you to look at the project website to get a lot more details. But this year you've seen lots of ramp closures. We do have to close the aux lane in a couple spots to get the widening done. The sound walls should be done later this year, and then more work is ongoing between now and 2025. I encourage everyone to be very aware as they're driving through this work area of constantly changing traffic impacts. So we're putting about every sign we can out there to warn motorists of what to expect out there. And yeah, we've got a lot of work to do between now and 25. Next slide, please. Corn Pass ITS work. This has not quite started yet, but we're going to be doing some targeted improvements to the ITS system north of 26 and in the curves. And then we also, this was a partnership with Washington County, and so there'll be some signal improvements and other things between US 26 and Oregon 8. We did not show those on here. Those are going to be help the whole system function better, but a little tougher to see when the project's done, other than seeing how much better traffic flows along Corn Pass. Next slide. So we have our arts projects, all roads, transportation, safety. This is more targeted improvements throughout the entire Portland metro area. So we have broken those into 3 different projects, but a lot of targeted shoulder closures to get signals upgraded, also doing illumination, signing, and striping on pretty much every highway in the Portland metro area. So that's going to be happening now through 23. And sorry, I'm going through these pretty quick because I know we don't have much time, but also I'm happy to take questions at the end. Next slide, please. So then our latest round of ADA ramp upgrade projects. So as you can see the list there, we've got 6 different highways that we're working on in many of the cities within the area. So at least west side right now, we're looking at Farmington Road, Cornelius, and Forest Grove. So I'd say this bundle is going to be going through 23, but Odot will be replacing ADA ramps for probably the better part of the next decade, as we have thousands of ramps that need to get upgraded to current standards. So it's going to be a very big part of our construction portfolio, not just in the summer, but year round to get these done. Next slide, please. I think with that, so you can see my contact information there, also my counterparts in the central area and on the east side of the metro area. So that's all the slides I had. So I'll open up to questions.
Yes, Mayor Jones. Ah, looks like Frank snuck in ahead of you there anyways. Frank, you gonna go first?
Just real quick, Matt, on 217 with the sound walls, it seems as soon as you're putting it up, they're getting tagged. And it's just amazing how fast, and these are big tags. So what's Odot? I mean, like I'm just amazed these kids, I'm assuming it's kids, are tagging it during the construction, but how are you gonna deal with that? Is this gonna be an issue Tigard has to deal with, or is this an Odot issue?
Well, first off, yes, it is rather disappointing that we put up a new sound wall to mitigate noise, and it's also a canvas. It is an ODOT facility, so we will be responsible for maintaining it and dealing with the tagging that has occurred. Right now, it's kind of in an odd situation because it's still an active construction site. So officially, it is the contractor's responsibility. But as you can imagine, the contractor is reluctant to paint over it too often, knowing that there's high potential for it to get tagged again. So that's an ongoing discussion we have with the contractor and with our maintenance forces on who maintains it, when, and where. Yeah, it's the wall itself is to mitigate noise, but also to provide a barrier between the highway and the neighborhoods. But that also means it's a little tougher too. We can't really put a fence in front of the wall to prevent people, but it's a challenge we're working on.
Mayor Jones?
So as you can imagine, I'm more focused on Highway 47, which wasn't even on your statewide map as a construction area. I know that the official legal detour goes, you're going backwards, and with traffic, well, actually with gas prices, people really are reluctant to go back east in order to get west. But also like the different map programmings basically don't warn you that you're about to take a left turn onto Highway 26, which is not controlled in any way. And I know we had 5 accidents just in June. There's already been another one. And I kind of feel like when the mileage number is what says, here's the detour, it's closed at this mileage point. If there was a way to phrase it so that ordinary people would understand, because no one knows what the mile markers are, but saying, you can't go through Banks to get to 26, maybe more would actually turn and go east in order to get west.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, I touched on this a little bit at the beginning, but I think that's when my microphone wasn't working.
Yeah, you were fading in and out.
Yeah, that's talked with our construction PM this morning, and they're working with state police as well to monitor the area. But Sellers Road is not, as you've seen, is not sized to take that many vehicles turning left. So we're seeing quite a few crashes. So the challenge we run into, which is, we tell people about upcoming work, upcoming projects, and we sign the detour, and everyone's Google Maps tells them a better way to go, but not mentioning that that's a challenging left turn. So I'll talk with our construction office and see what changes we can make to the detour routes. Certainly, Trip Check has the information, as does the web page, but I know it's tough to access those as you're driving along 47 trying to get north.
Yeah, thank you.
Mayor Mays?
Just on the tagging, ideally for future projects, maybe have the contractor apply the anti-graffiti paint to the panels before they're installed. And then certainly I would hope that in the plan for ODOT is that once you get ownership of the panels, that you'll paint them with the blah, 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 and then the anti-graffiti paint to minimize it in the future.
Yeah, thank you. I'm pretty sure that it does have the anti-graffiti paint, which just means it's slightly easier to remove, but I think the paint still sticks there until it gets sprayed off. So, but yeah, it's we've got to figure out how to get that on our signs as well. But
yeah.
Matt, just because everybody kicks you in the shins about graffiti, I'm going to say something nice. The attention that's been given to get a lot of it cleaned up on 26 to into town, thank you for doing that. Because I mean, it's an embarrassment to all of us to have people come out of the airport and just see the mess on the freeway. And anything you guys can do to continue to clean that up. I know it's an ongoing battle. We talk to our counterparts, but it is not an enforcement of their choice. So I understand that you're struggling with that it's no man's land, but I did want to give you an attaboy that anytime you guys do that, it really does help at the tunnels and everywhere else. So thank you for at least getting done what you can, where you can.
Sure. Thank you very much. Yeah, we have a dedicated team that's all they do all day, every day is putting the the Odot beige on every flat surface we can, and then sometimes coming very quickly right after that to put it on again, but realizing that that needs to be a priority.
Well, and they don't just tag your walls, right? They tag your signs, your speed signs, all that stuff going in and out of Portland. I can't believe how horrible that even the highway signs, they're prying letters off and they're painting things. It's out of control. But thank you for all you are doing out there.
Thank
you. Okay. Well, that takes us into statewide TIP, transportation TIF. Let's see what we got here. So we got provide an update on the proposed 2325 STIF project and public outreach. So this informational one. Our last meeting, we talked a lot about what we need for transportation services. Dayami is going to give us an update on proposed public transportation services funded by the state TIF. It comes to Washington County and it's operated Ride Connection and also upcoming public comment opportunities. Chris, I think you're up first, and then maybe you're gonna.
I'm just gonna turn it over to Dayami.
Thanks for the time saved.
Great, thanks, Chris. Can you click into presenters view or the full screen? Sorry. Slideshow maybe. Anyway, we're getting that up. We wanted to share the brief overview of what this program is, a statewide transportation improvement fund. Just a reminder for folks, and then share the upcoming Biennium's proposal that's going to go out for public comment. There, perfect, thank you. And then solicit some input on public engagement opportunities as we're doing our outreach. So next slide. So real briefly, this is the funding that came out of the House Bill 2017. It's the employee payroll tax. It has a set of objectives, but primarily focused on improving service to low-income populations, as well as student services, and improving coordination with transit providers and reducing service fragmentation. The funding is, there's a formula funding that's specifically, these are funds that are generated outside the TriMet district, TriMet and SMART districts that come to Washington County. And then we're also eligible as the public transportation service provider to seek competitive discretionary funds. There's about, I think, 10% statewide dedicated to discretionary funding. And then just a reminder that there is the special transportation funds for older adults and persons with disabilities have been included into this set of funding through the House Bill 1601. But it does have a separate application process, similar to the process that it's gone through previously. Next slide, please. So we have a great partner in Ride Connection. We've contracted with them to provide our transportation services, which the real benefit is it leverages other funding and a lot of the good work and relationships that they have in the community. Their federal and state funds are focused on older adults and people with disabilities, as well as network management. So we can kind of take advantage of that and supplement that with this set of funding available through the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund. Next slide. So the Board of County Commissioners convened a transit committee, and their charge is really to set a priority, provide a recommendation for priority in terms of how to allocate these funds. And the map here illustrates the focus of the funds, which are for services outside the TriMet and SMART districts, and then also looking at opportunities to connect to TriMet and SMART, and then also first and last leg community connector services within TriMet district. I'm going to talk a little bit more about those programs shortly. Next slide. Actually, if you can skip through this one. So just wanted to talk about, so this program has been, was established in 2018 essentially. So over the last 4 years, these funds have, well, one, we've stood up a transit program here at Washington County and with support from Ride Connection. And so the accomplishments that we've been able to do with these funds is continue to serve those community connector services in Forest Grove, Tualatin, and Hillsborough, as well as do some additional planning for opportunities to expand shuttle services in Washington County. We've sought opportunities to improve coordination with adjacent counties. We've also supported Ride Connection's door-to-door services by expanding the types of trips that they can offer to the general public. We've also been able to add trips to Westlink, which connects Forest Grove, Banks, North Plains, and Hillsborough. We've also been able to improve general information and promotion with marketing and branding to help raise awareness about these services that Ride Connection provides, as well as successfully won a couple grants to with Ride Connection to improve stops in communities associated with the shuttle services, as well as technology improvements on the shuttles. Next slide, please. So the general theme for the upcoming biennium, the funds are allocated on a biennium basis. And out of our committee, the emphasis has been to maintain existing services, also recognizing that inflation is real and a thing that we have to take into consideration, as well as looking for opportunities to enhance these existing services with improving weekday frequency, adding weekend service, expanding the span of service, as well as looking at modifying routes. And that work is really done kind of as the next phase. That Ride Connection, they do a lot of that work with the community to identify what those priorities are. And then also there's an opportunity to add a new community connector service, thanks to TriMet's HB 2017 Advisory Committee. Their recommendation is to expand the pot of funds that are dedicated for these first and last mile community connector services. And so we see an opportunity to fund an additional service out here in Washington County. So I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about the work that we've done specifically around that. You want to go to the next slide. So in our transit development plan, which is our board adopted in 2021, it identified some opportunity areas for these community connector shuttles, which we've heard resoundingly a lot of interest in these through various planning efforts, including the transit development plan. And these are areas that really lack kind of existing fixed route service and has kind of a demonstrated need and also kind of an opportunity of an emerging transit market. So we see potential for ridership in these areas. So next slide. We had a consultant do some analysis to help identify where these areas might be most ripe for near-term investment, and broke them into tiers. There were 10 areas that were kind of advanced through this planning effort, and they're reflected here. And the top tier really reflects a lens looking at equity criteria, so different community characteristics, as well as ridership potential. And I won't go into detail about each one of these areas, but just to let you know that this will be part of our public engagement, an opportunity for folks to weigh in on these opportunity areas. Next slide, please. So kind of a challenging schedule to read here, but just to let you know, we'll have about a month of engagement. Maybe we'll go to the next slide. With an online survey. We will be out at various tabling events. I think Aaron's going to touch on a number of those in the next discussion item. And then opportunity to also share through briefings with stakeholders. We look forward to your staff and other partners sharing this opportunity with folks. And I know that we're going to be in newsletters where we can and social media, hopefully pushing this opportunity out to folks. Next slide. I think we have a set of questions, but just if there are any questions or comments in terms of the information that we've shared, I'm happy to answer any of those at this time.
Committee members, any questions, comments? Sounds like you got away, Diami.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for the update. Okay, that takes us into the MSTIP 2328 summer outreach. Review refined MSTIP project list, summer outreach plans, and next steps. Chris, do you need to chat on this or right into Aaron?
I am going to turn it right over to Aaron, and I think there should be a drum roll because this is a major milestone.
It is. This is an exciting time. My name is Erin Wardell, Principal Transportation Planner for Washington County. Next slide, please. Teresa, can we go to the next slide? So the purpose of our briefing today, and I think this one will be relatively short, is to review the refined project list, which was approved by the Board of Commissioners for public outreach. We will preview our summer outreach plan, and we hope to see some of you out in the community, and then talk about some of our next steps. Next slide. So as you may recall, at the WCCC's June meeting, you made a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners around a refined project list. And that refined project list was based on technical analysis and some initial community engagement that we did. The board agreed with the WCCC's recommendation, but they added one additional project, and that's the Saltsman Road project up in District 2. That is a project that was previously funded for design in Mstip 3E. It's undergoing alternatives analysis and preliminary design right now. We've identified that additional funds will be necessary for construction of the board's preferred alignment. And so the board asked to include that project in the community engagement as well. So with the addition of that project, the board approved the refined project list for public outreach and directed staff to move forward with broad engagement. And that was a big milestone for us in this Mstip process. Next slide. So this next set of slides talks over each of the projects. We're actually going to skip through them since you're already familiar with the project lists, and I know we're running a little bit low on time for this meeting, but you can go back and review all of them. Let's actually pause here on District 2. Can we go back to District 2 really quickly, just because I want to point out that Saltsman Road project number 201 up in Bethany is now included on the list. And then the next slide is District 3. Next one's District 4. And then we'll go to the next. So we have an online open house, which we launched on July 8th. That will be open until August 12th. The link is here. It's also been shared in your materials. We are working with our city partners through the TAC and through each of the city's communications staff as well to try to share this link far and wide. We found that the best way to share online open houses really is through social media and online newsletters, because people are already engaging through their computers or their phones, and it's an opportunity for them to easily click a link and take a survey. We also will be out in the community at in-person events. And when we're at an in-person event, we're sharing the link to the online survey. We have a card with the link and a QR code, but we're also using a paper survey, because we found that when you interact with people in person, they often just want to take a paper survey and hand it back to you. So when you see us at these in-person events, we have a large poster and we have the paper surveys on clipboards to interact with people. We have 14 in-person events scheduled. We actually have 12 coming up. We've already done 2, and they've been hugely successful. Our first was on Saturday. We were at Viva Tualatin. We saw Mayor Bubenik there. That was a huge event. We interacted with 300 people at our booth and had 50 people take paper surveys. So we were pretty impressed at the initial kickoff for this effort. We were also at the Cornelius Farmers Market on Friday, and we have 12 more events coming up around the county. We are available to give briefings at other events or meetings as requested. We have a few different stakeholders who've already requested briefings. The Washington County Chamber and Westside Economic Alliance come to mind. We've distributed postcards, again, advertising the online survey to our various libraries around the county. And we have the postcards available for our partners to distribute as well. So if that's something you're interested in, you know there's another event coming up, you want to make sure it's covered, let us know. I've also talked to some of our partners about providing them with the maps and the paper surveys, and then they can run engagement on their own if county staff can't be there. So we're really excited to get a lot of participation through the various efforts that we've put together for this. Next slide. So our next steps through this month and next, we'll be doing outreach on our refined project list. In September and October, we will be back to share what we've heard from the community. We'll also start our discussions about the final selected project list and our programmatic allocations. So that would be the Mstip Opportunity Fund, the Rural Bridges, and Intelligent Transportation Systems programs. We haven't had those conversations yet, but we'll start having those in September and October. And then in November, we'll be back to ask the WCCC to make a final recommendation to the board. And we're looking forward to possible board adoption in December of this year. Next slide. So we are here. We've moved beyond milestone number 3, which was the board directing staff to begin engagement. And we're looking forward to interacting with the community a little bit more. I really can't emphasize enough how much fun it's been to actually go out and talk to real people again. It's been really great for our staff. We're pretty excited about doing more of it. So I think with that, we have time for some questions.
Commission, questions?
Aaron, I have a quick question. Do you have a list of the other places that you will be holding these in-person gatherings?
We do, and I will tell you, we are planning to be at the Garlic Festival on Saturday the 13th. So we'll be up there in North Plains. That's already on our list. We had actually put together a slide with the list, and then some things moved around, and so we didn't have that to share, but we can send that around to all of you after this meeting.
That would be really great, because unfortunately I will be at an OMA conference and I won't see you on that Saturday, but I would like to, you know, come by and support you at another location.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, we've all got our pet ones. I mean, like National Night Out for Cornelius will be big. There'll be 1,000, 2,000 people there at that event. So.
We're planning to be there too. We were just invited to that. And so
good.
Yes, we'll have staff there.
Good deal. Well, if there's nothing else, I think we're ready to move on. Thanks, Aaron. Okay, let's
Jeff, the only thing I was going to say to Aaron is I admire and appreciate everybody's work ethic and willingness to tackle this extra project. But every single place they're going sounds like an awful lot of fun. So, you know, thank you for thanks for doing that, and have a good time at each of those places.
Yeah, I'm sure the dentist will have like some free slushies again or something. He's always trying to generate business at National Night Out. So don't feel like you know, recommend the staff get over and get those slushies from the dentist. They're full of sugar. Okay. Pete's not here to do impact. Steve, did you think you got it?
I would be glad to. So coming up this month in July, we have a couple of things on the agenda. One is RTP, congestion pricing policy. And Kim Ellis with Metro and Alex Orshak with Metro will be presenting that. Also, there'll be a topic of homeless prevention, understanding factors that lead to someone to lose housing, and prevention strategies. So that's in July. And then I might as well go ahead and do August's update because that was pretty easy. There is no meeting in August, so there's no agenda to report, for that month.
Any questions for Steve on impact? Okay, you want to jump right into Jpeg then, Steve?
And I believe that Commissioner Fye is going to give kind of the agenda overview. And if I'm wrong, I apologize. I don't mean to put you on the spot. And then I'll be glad to fill folks in on the first RTP meeting that we held that was joint JPAC and Metro Council.
I think that's you, Stephen. Just
all right.
Keeping on. And I think Chris put me on the agenda just to add 2 cents about the JPAC workshop that we've had last month. But but I think you'll do a great job also giving that update.
Well,
we were both there.
Well, thank you. And I'll tell you what, I'll defer to you for the for the workshop update. And then if there's anything to fill in, I'll be glad to do that. So later this month on Thursday, we will have update on the RIFA report. That'll be the initial draft proposal from Dan Camp at Metro. And then we'll have our second RTP Council and JPAC workshop. And that one will be looking at congestion pricing as well as the Odot plan amendment. And so Commissioner Fye, if you want to kind of give an overview of what we did at the last RTP meeting, I'll open up that space for you.
Thank you, Mayor Callaway. Yeah, I think we're both there. I'm not sure if there's your alternate was there as well, but it was really for me, it was my first time participating in JPAC workshop. So it was really good to just sort of have an open conversations about the RTP, the Regional Transportation Plan, to just get that context and the background. And this workshop was facilitated by Chair Craddock, and then there was an outside facilitator that came in to just keep the conversation going, and her name was Allison Brown. So we sort of had a small group discussion, and then just to talk about the goals, the RTP goals among ourselves. And
Commissioner, I think you froze.
I did. Can you hear me now? Is it still frozen?
Yeah.
Okay now.
Okay. Can I blame living in Aloha, but it's okay. I do have a Wi-Fi extension, so I'm not sure where, but you all can hear. Not good. Okay. I don't know where I froze, but the idea for the workshop was to break into small groups and talk about the goals and the vision, and just to have a small discussion among ourselves. It was really good. What I've heard was to broaden the language to make it more inclusive for everyone. I think the mission was specific to Portland metropolitan area. We had our table had a discussion about, how do we identify as a region rather than calling that Portland? Because if you live in Aloha, the question could be, am I covered in this vision? So that was a really good. The other thing I heard is to make the goals and targets be measurable, and consolidating rather than having this many goals, to how do we consolidate and how do we be more concise, and include some definitions, stronger language around the goals so that it's measurable right at the as soon as you read the goals. So that's what I heard, and I think we're meeting next month on another topic. So I think we're having 5 different workshops. I don't want to freeze. So did I miss anything? Chris, you were there listening in as well. And Mayor Calloway, you were there too.
Yeah, I was there. I think that's a good summary. I think Mayor Calloway's table came up with quite a, you may want to add in, your table came up with quite a few ideas too.
Thank you, Chris. So currently, there were 11 goals, that were part of the RTP. And so we really tried to winnow it down so that they were a little bit broader and fewer. And so we looked, primarily, for instance, the shared prosperity, transportation choices, reliability, and efficiency, and equitable transportation. We all felt that those could fit well into one. We also wanted to make sure that freight, for example, was included in that goal as well. But we still felt that like a standalone one was safety and security, that one still needed to be not combined, with anything else, but that still needed to continue to be a standalone priority, for our RTP. With the vision, again, we wanted to make sure that it was updated, to where we are today, as opposed to when it was before. I was fortunate, just to have some really thoughtful, good people in our committee, in our table group of about 4 or 5 people. And so our next workshop is coming up the 28th. And so that one, again, will be at the zoo, and will be tolling amendments and congestion pricing. So some of the issues that were brought forward last time when we talked that didn't really fit as part of the agenda, this first workshop will be carried forward and part of the discussion, in the meetings and workshops going forward. So thank you.
Great. Thank you for the updates. Chris, did we get a chance to talk about the bus? I was trying to remember if Garrett and I talked about the bus.
Yes, go ahead. That's a great update.
Yeah. And since we got a couple minutes, the other ones kind of got done quick there. I know Commissioner Garrett and I, Rosenthal and I got to do the bus tour on the morning here a couple weekends back, and it was very interesting. I'll be in my usual color comment. I will allow that it was exciting to ride that long a bus through some neighborhood streets in Aloha, because there were some places we were supposed to pull off and stop. And when we got there wasn't a place to pull off, and those buses don't turn around in your neighborhood. So, but they do actually handle those neighborhood streets amazingly well with that articulation on the back. So I thought that was interesting, an awesome time. I can recommend, based on having ridden the bus, make sure you give it lots of room when it takes those big turns, like off a 10th onto TV Highway. It took both the lanes in the turn with that articulation. It used more than its fair share there. And the other place where we saw an interesting turn was actually when we tried to turn it around. Well, they succeeded. We had an excellent bus driver. They managed to not only fit it into the Forest Grove stop station at the end of line where it turns around and comes back, but they made the turn there too. And it was, it used all of its road sections to make the turn. So, and a lot of people had fun riding the joint, I think they call it, or the flex. That's an interesting place to be in when the bus goes in a corner. And I think it actually gave us a great chance to chat, right? It was an in-person time. We spent hours together, and we got to chat about our feelings and our considerations and what was going on with the bus. And I think there was definitely some concerns brought up about the idea of the bus stops being in the highway instead of beside the highway, right? We really get to see firsthand the interaction between Odot Rail and really bringing it. Because if you drive by that all the time, you don't really think about how that we've got a 30-foot easement, and that the bus is actually, a lot of the bus stops along the Hillsborough to Aloha, Beaverton area are actually in the Odot Rail easement already. So we need to actually look at how do we move those out. So, but I would be remiss not to bring up that several of us had concerns about the idea of stopping a bus for 20 to 30 seconds, basically 1/10 of the time in the lane on TV highway, and the impact that that would have, you know, on the traffic on TV highway of cutting down 1/10 of the capacity of TV highway a significant amount of time. So I think that's one of those issues that's going as we go forward and look at that. That's something for us to talk about is where do we move in, where do we move out, and there. Commissioner Rosenthal, did you have some stuff you wanted to talk about from the bus ride?
Not in great deal. You covered it. I thought it was pretty interesting. I learned a lot about the demographics of Cornelius, more than I had known before, and how you can judge what's going on at a house by the number of cars that are parked there and when. So I thought that was very interesting. Again, the bus stop issue is a big issue that's going to be addressed. The right-of-way issue is serious, and the articulated buses are great, but they're not very good for short hops in neighborhood streets. That is a little bit of a difficulty for them. So, any rate, it was a very good discussion. A lot of a lot of good interaction. So, it's going to be there's a lot of work to do.
Anyone else that was on the bus ride want to chit or chat? I'm trying to think if anybody else was here from it. Okay, that's the update there. Chris, that takes us into other business. Is there anything you wanted to bring up in other business?
I think we've covered everything I can think of, but I would open it up the floor for others. I would just have to say it's nice to see Councilor Sansucci again, but I sure have been thinking about going to Crater Lake.
That's awesome. Mayor Callaway, you had something?
I do. Thank you, Chair. Just a reminder that at our August WCCC meeting, we'll be voting on the TPAC alternate. So just because we had Julia Hyduk, who was the alternate, is now the city manager in Staten, Oregon. So we need to fill the alternate position. Thanks.
Do you want to just do that kind of live fire like we did the ones for the primaries and alternates for the tolling? Is that how you want to do it next month? Put it on the agenda for that way?
No, I'm not sure if you're being a little tongue in cheek or if you're being more serious. So it will be a more formal, process. We'll make sure that folks get the names, and the kind of background criteria beforehand.
Okay, great. Because we kind of just did it. We just did it right here for that. So, okay. What else? Anybody else have some stuff we need to chat about before we dismiss? Garrett looks like he's looking up at the next Hollywood Square up there. Okay, well, if we don't have anything else, let's finish 7 minutes early. That'd be great. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
If it doesn't feel like 7 minutes early, just for the record.
Hey, you have to stay longer, Keith, because you're on the phone a bunch of the time.
I was.
You have to give us back your 7 minutes now.
Great. See y'all later. Thanks.
Take care. Thanks, Chair.